Welcome to the haunted Quill.
The village of Mistvale was once a place of beauty, nestled in a valley where rivers sparkled under the sun and forests teemed with life. But a fateful winter changed everything. The frost came early that year, creeping down from the mountains and settling over the land with an iron grip, leaving the villagers trapped in an unrelenting cold that seemed to have no end. Months passed, and the frost only grew thicker. The fields were buried under layers of ice, crops were destroyed before harvest, and the rivers, lifelines of Mistvale, froze solid. No fish could be caught, no water drawn, and the villagers began to despair. Among the inhabitants of the village was Althea, a young woman of quiet courage and unwavering kindness. With her parents lost to an illness that swept through during the first harsh months of the frost, Althea became the caretaker of her 3 younger siblings, a role she took on with fierce determination. Every morning, Althea would rise before dawn to scavenge for firewood in the nearby forest. Though she knew the trees closest to Mistvale were nearly bare and the ground beneath them barren, she refused to give up. She bundled herself in layers of patched clothing, braving the cold for the sake of her family. Her youngest brother Finn was the most delicate of the children. Barely 7 years old, he had always been small and frail, and the biting cold of the endless winter weighed heavily on his tiny body. He would lie in their shared bed, shivering even under the thickest blanket they owned, his breaths shallow and weak. One evening, as Althea sat by the fireplace stitching holes in their blankets, her grandmother spoke softly of an ancient legend, her voice trembling with age and weariness. "Deep within Elder Glim Forest," she said, "there grows a tree unlike any other. The moonlit oak. It is said to glow with the light of the stars and hold magic older than the world itself." Althea listened intently as her grandmother continued. "The moonlit oak grants a single wish to those who are pure of heart, but reaching it is no small task. The forest is alive, and it tests all who dare to enter. Many have tried, yet few have returned to tell the tale." The story planted a seed of hope in Althea's heart. Though the villagers feared Elder Glim Forest for its shifting shadows and haunting whispers, Althea found herself drawn to the idea of the moonlit oak. For the sake of her family, she would face whatever dangers the forest held. That night, as Finn coughed weakly in his sleep and her other siblings huddled close for warmth, Althea resolved to seek the tree. She spent hours preparing for the journey, gathering what little she had: a loaf of stale bread, a flask of tea, and her mother's silver crescent-shaped pendant, a keepsake said to bring protection. At dawn, Althea set out. The air was bitterly cold, and the snow crunched beneath her worn boots as she made her way toward Elder Glim. The villagers who saw her leave called out warnings, pleading with her not to enter the cursed forest. But she pressed on, her determination unshaken. The edge of Elder Glim loomed before her like a great wall, the trees towering high into the sky with gnarled branches that twisted and clawed at the air. As she stepped into the shadowy expanse, the air grew heavy, and the world seemed to shift around her. The forest was unlike anything Althea had ever experienced. The ground beneath her feet was soft and springy, and the air was thick with the scent of pine and damp earth. Strange sounds echoed through the trees, soft whispers that seemed to come from nowhere, and the occasional rustle of unseen creatures. Althea clutched her pendant tightly, drawing comfort from its smooth, cool surface. She had heard stories of the Veilkin, shadowy spirits said to inhabit Elder Glim. Though no one had ever seen them clearly, their presence was said to be felt in the form of flickering shadows and the sensation of being watched. Hours passed as Althea navigated the maze-like forest, guided only by instinct and the faint whispers of the legend she clung to. She felt the weight of the forest pressing in around her, but she refused to turn back. Just as she began to feel the first stirrings of doubt, a soft, silvery light appeared in the distance. It flickered faintly, like a firefly in the dark, and seemed to beckon her forward. Althea's heart quickened, and she followed the light with cautious steps. The light led her to a clearing bathed in an otherworldly glow. At its center stood the moonlit oak, its branches stretching toward the heavens and its bark shimmering like silver spun from the stars. Nathan felt a deep hum resonate through the air, as if the tree itself was alive and aware of her presence. She stepped closer, her breath visible in the cold air. "Great tree," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I have come to ask for your aid. My village suffers under an endless winter, and my family is struggling to survive. Please, grant me the strength to save them." The oak's glow brightened, and a deep, resonant voice filled the clearing. "You have traveled far, mortal," it said, "and your heart speaks of courage and love. But the forest has watched you, and your resolve must be tested further on." The veiled Gin's voice was soft yet commanding. "To receive the oak's blessing, you must answer this. Would you sacrifice your own warmth for the sake of another?" Doran says nothing, trying to gain the courage to reply. Althea thought of Finn and her siblings, their thin frames curled together for warmth. Without hesitation, she nodded. "I would," she said firmly. Her smile faded, and she said, reaching for a book and pulling it forward. The Veilgin tilted its head, studying her. "Very well," it said. "Then take this leaf." A single leaf drifted from the moonlit oak, glowing brighter as it descended. Althea reached out, catching it gently. The leaf was warm in her hands, and she felt a surge of energy course through her. "This leaf holds the power to end your village's suffering," the oak said. "But its magic comes at a price. Are you prepared to bear it?" Althea nodded again, her resolve unwavering. "If it will save my family and my village, I accept." The Veilman stepped aside, and the oak's light dimmed slightly. Althea felt the weight of her choice, but clutched the glowing leaf tightly. The journey back to Mistvale was treacherous. The forest seemed to resist her departure, its paths twisting and shifting as if to confuse her. She trotted forward, hoping that she would reach the house before the night set in. Althea whispered prayers of gratitude and determination, her steps steady despite the shadows that reached for her. "Laka lived in the future," she said, and wishing for the chance to empower and improve others. After what felt like days, she emerged from Elder Glim, the edge of the village in sight. Her mind felt clear. The villagers gathered around her as she returned, their eyes wide with wonder and hope as she held up the glowing leaf. "Burn this leaf in the hearth of the village," Althea told them, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. "Its magic will lift the winter's curse." The villagers followed her instructions, gathering around the central hearth as the leaf was placed into the flames. It took the villagers 5 minutes to warm 2 leaves, one for each of the villagers, to place the leaf back in the fire. As the leaf burned, its light filled the air, warming the villagers and melting the frost that clung to the ground. Why did the snow began to retreat and the rivers thawed, their waters flowing freely once more. Flowers began to bloom, and the warmth of spring returned to the land, breaking the curse that had held them in its icy grip. The villagers cheered and celebrated, their hearts lifted with gratitude and joy. Althea stood quietly at the edge of the crowd, her heart swelling with relief as she watched her siblings run and play in the newly thawed fields. That night, as the village celebrated, Althea felt a strange warmth within her. She realized that the price of the oak's magic was now part of her, a mark of her sacrifice and her love for her people. Though she had given up her own warmth, she felt no regret, for she had saved her family and her village from the endless winter. The villagers began to tell a new tale of Althea, the brave girl who had faced Elder Glim and returned with the gift of spring. Over time, the village flourished once more, its fields rich with crops and its rivers full of life. Althea remained a beacon of hope and resilience, her story inspiring generations to come. Though she never returned to Elder Glim, She often gazed toward the forest with a quiet smile, her heart filled with gratitude. The legend of the moonlit oak lived on, passed down through the ages as a tale of courage, sacrifice, and love. Althea's siblings grew strong and healthy, and the bonds of her family became unbreakable. The four siblings. On warm evenings, Althea would sit by the fire, telling her siblings stories of the moonlit oak and the wonders of Elderglim. She never spoke of the price she paid, for she believed it was a small thing compared to the joy and life she had restored to her people. She took the best care of the crew, and they sailed away. Elderglim remained a place of mystery and magic, its secrets hidden from all but the most determined of souls. The villagers learned to live in harmony with the land, cherishing the blessings they had been given. And so, Mistvale thrived once more, its people forever remembering the brave girl who ventured into the forest to bring life back to their frozen world.